This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content, and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
The Rebel Mages episodes contain spoilers from The Priory of the Orange Tree, The Black Witch Chronicles, and ACOMAF, with mentions of Throne of Glass, From Blood and Ash, and Harry Potter. There are also discussions surrounding sexual assault, suicide, self-harm, and domestic abuse.
Hi everybody, and welcome to A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, your weekly deep dive into the YA literature and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie, that's Jessica Marie, and this is part 2 of Rebel Mages. And this episode is focusing on Lightmage. So, enjoy!
So, book 2, novella 1.5, whatever you want to call it.
So that is Lightmage. And I love this. I love Lightmage. I want more Sagellyn Gaffney. She is such a great character, and her story is so fantastic. Jess, what do you think about Lightmage?
I right off the bat, so it's broken into 2 parts, maybe 3 parts. I can't remember. But you have different points in her life. I guess it's 2 parts. So you have part 1 of essentially 13-year-old Sage. She's young, she's impressionable, she's super innocent. I mean, there were certain things that she said, bless her heart, the innocence. But I found so much of myself of Sage in these, I really want to kiss him. We're wandfasted now. We're going to be together forever. Or when she was saying, he's my best mate. He would never hurt me. I go, oh, sweet girl. Oh. And I mean, the first four chapters completely, before we really get into it. So we've explored wand fasting. We've discussed it throughout the different books. I did have a question because at this point in Lightmage, we're in present day Garden area, more or less, not the one with all the edicts and I was going to say vulgar. Why can't I think of
Vogel?
We're
not in
that
Vogel's,
part of,
yeah.
But he is behind the scenes. We know his presence is there. And conversations are already stirring about, they're starting to wand fast as young as 13. We know those conversations are being had. So here we are with 13-year-old Sage, and she's getting wand fasted, but then to the kid Tobias, and then they have the fasting ceremony. They're fasted, and then they sit next to their parents and they leave the room. I'm completely against this. Was under the impression that they were marrying them at 13 and then they were still forcing them to consummate. That's not what happened. So it's 2 very different things that you can be wand fasted, but the consummation would seal that. It doesn't have to happen like wedding night kind of thing.
Right, yeah. So the sealing is a completely different ceremony, and that is when they're 18. But the wand fasting part of it is in this book is at 13, and that's like an engagement, which is why, if we're going to go back to wand fasted, why Vale insists on sealing it right then and there so that there can be no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Tesla and Vale are done. They're done. So in this book, Lightmage, Sage is engaged at 13, and then they have to wait until the sealing at 18 to be consummated. And that is when the sanguine first blood and the lines go, up to the wrists and arms and stuff. Yeah. And I think it's worth noting that Sage is incredibly isolated, and that she is with her dad and her stepmom and her sisters, and Elloren is there, but they're like not supposed to hang out, and like she
has a crush on Rafe at this
yeah,
point.
I mean, like, fair.
Right. And she would even say, like, she was seeing him, she saw him or something. And they're neighbors, so of course she's going to see him. And she makes a comment of, oh, I wonder what it would be like to kiss him. And she goes, oh, I can't. God forbid if somebody knew I was having these thoughts. I mean, she is very sheltered. It's part of her upbringing. It's part of the culture. It's part of the community. They can't even have friends of the opposite sex without, she has the two friends. I think it was Gwynnifer, maybe it was somebody else, who her and the other guy, she was like, we wanted to collect stones. We didn't, everybody thought we were going down to the lake to kiss, and we were collecting stones. And then we were forced to fast so we wouldn't have this marking on our names and our family names. And they're at that age when this happens, because this is part 1, where she goes, do you even like him like that? And they're like, well, he's a good companion. Like, good effort, bro. Kissing's gross. And then they're even saying, like, who's thinking, and I appreciated this line, who thinks of such things with demons on their trail anyway? Like, we love practical shit here. Bigger picture. I don't have time to think about making out with this guy. I'm being chased.
I really I'm pretty sure it's Gwynnifer. I'm sure somebody will correct us if it's not. I got such Luna Lovegood vibes from her in her tower room. Like, I loved it.
Quick flashback, since we're talking Harry Potter. When we're hearing about the war tent of Fane, I was thinking of when he goes, Vale is very minimalist, and Fane is he's a little bit more opulent with his and they would describe his tent as an Ishcart market. And I kept thinking of the Weasleys' tent when they go to the Triwizard tournament, where everything's happening. Like, I just had such like homey vibes. I felt as if I was in there.
Oh, it's so good. It's all so good. Everyone needs to read all of this. Okay. Sage Ellen Gaffney Sage is a light mage. A light mage is a type of mage that is incredibly rare. There's only one other one in all of Gardneria. And because Sage is a girl, she is not allowed to use or practice or learn about her abilities, which is devastating. And
at this point, she's basically, all the women in Gardneria are considered, she needs to basically stay at home barefoot in the kitchen. Her only purpose would be to procreate a life in order to pass this light mage affinity to
her sons.
It has to be a son, exactly.
Yeah. And Sage's power is really beautiful. And the way that Laurie Forrest describes it is like she can see colors, like things have different colors, and she can tighten the affinity lines around her eyes to like see better in the dark, and she's drawn to the color purple, which we know is very important because when we see Sage in the Black Witch and the Iron Flower, and I think a little bit in the Shadow one, she is purple. She's like stuck as purple, and we find out through this book like why that happens, and she's like drawn to purple. And Sage's journey is just really fantastic. And I find that it's very relatable and it's very real. She's, this like sheltered, I think of her as like a Puritan kind of, like pilgrim-esque kind of setting. You know what I mean? Like with the garments that they have to wear, and she has to wear black. Like they all have to wear black, which is difficult for Sage because she sees basically in rainbows. And it's just a very like, her internal self is all these colors, but her external self is like everything is black. It's just, oh my God. Okay. So the day of the wand fasting, Sage has to spend the night at the girl's house in the tower. And that is when we get the White Wand of Legend. We finally figure out how Sage came in contact with the White Wand, and Guinevere tells her all the shit, right? She gives her all the stuff. She gives her copies of grimoires. She gives her like legends of different cultures. She gives her the wand. She tells her about the demons. And I really love it. And like she brings her like little boyfriend that's in on it from the tree with the candies, like he's in on it. And they're so scared, right? That is kind of the vibe that we get there.
Well, I think there's also, because obviously Gwynnifer received this shadow wand, the white wand at some point, and we learn it's a calling. There's no rhyme or reason, because I mean at the end of this book she's receiving that calling of, we need to give this wand to Elloren, and she's a little butthurt about it too. She goes, I thought it was supposed to be me, like no, like I'm the person who has. And it's one of those things where it's just like a magical, I just feel like it's one of those things that makes sense in fantasy. That, okay, well, you know what? There's been a shift. No longer use this.
And it's really interesting because we know that these demons, right? These two demons that Sage sees talking to the guards of the armory, and they're looking for the wand, and her friend says, like, don't look them in the eyes. They have red eyes. They'll know that you have it if you look at them. We know as the reader that those are the demons that are tied to Marcus Vogel. Like, Marcus Vogel has already started at Sage being 13. He has already started sowing the seeds of his, like, takeover, right? He's already, like, activated the Shadow Wand. He's already got his demons tethered to him. He has started everything at this point. And those demons do not fuck around. Like, they recognize Sage and they, like, follow her out. But then what's really fantastic about this is that even though Sage stays in contact with her friend that gave her the wand, so much time passes that they start to doubt themselves. Like, we were just kids, like, playing around. That's just a toy. That's not the real thing. We didn't really see demons. We were just like, there was too much sugar. We were, like, too excited or whatever. Yeah.
And then you flash forward. I mean, yeah, I guess we do. Yeah, we flash forward 5 years, because now we're in part 2. They're at university. Sage is excited because I guess her friend was probably a little bit older than her and had already been at university. She's excited. She's been thinking about her fastmate this whole time. She's 18. I'm going to get me some.
She's ready.
She's ready. And her best friend have been writing letters every week, which, back in the day, I mean, even you and I, every now and then we still do letters or emails to say, hey, here's a catch up on, like, just because. Yeah. And she's ready. And then she sees, this is the part that brings us into the rest of the book. She sees her fastmate, who she has been, like, dreaming about for the last 5 years, with another person. And that person was the girl he had been dating when they were forced fastmated. So what happens, Laura?
Well, and I find this very interesting because Sage has in her head, like, constructed what Tobias is going to be like. He will be faithful. He will be this, and that, which is exactly what Tesla did. She had in her head what her fastmate, who she'd never met, was going to be like. He's going to be like this. Tesla's panned out. Sage's didn't. And didn't in such a disgusting, horrible, horrible way. So Sage sees Tobias with his, like, girlfriend or whatever, and she's, like, crushed, and she doesn't know what to do. And her friend tells her, like, yo.
I love this. This part it gave me. I don't know why I giggled so much.
She's like, put your hand on his thigh. And she's like,
thigh? How high?
How high? And her friend is like, yo, as high as it takes for him to not think about her anymore. And it's like, whoa. Oop.
And keep in mind, this is a very Puritan style culture where there should be no contact whatsoever until the wedding night, essentially. I mean, yeah. And I think it was just the rhyming that made me laugh, because then they are at the dinner table. She places a hand on his knee. Tobias is just like, boys can be so predictable.
Boys can be so predictable. And then, predictably, Tobias is like, and
trigger
Tobias,
warnings.
Yeah, and Tobias is he's an asshole. He's really full of himself. He's cocky. He's late to dinner. He doesn't want to be there. But what's interesting about this is like Tobias has not been fucking his girlfriend because she can't be fasted if she's impure and like she's engaged to somebody else. So like nobody's getting anything out of this, So like as soon as Sage puts the hand on the thigh, he's like, "Hey." So he's like, "All right, we're gonna go on like a walk." And Tobias takes Sage down.
And the parents say, stay on the main course, stay public. Everybody knows you're wand-fasted, but make sure you can be seen at all times.
And of course, Tobias doesn't. He leads her into like a very dark like library, like down deep. They say like in the bowels of the university. And trigger warning, tries all the things.
Tries all the things, even with Sage saying no, yelling no, hoping somebody could hear her. They can't. And just even the things that he said, it was just, memories unlocked. You're mine now. You don't get to say stop. I can do whatever I like with you. I did have to put the book down for like my own personal reasons. But holy hell. And then when she finally leaves the situation, she tells her parents, tells his parents, I will not fast to this person. You can't make me. I will not move forward with this. And then the victim shaming starts.
Yeah, his Tobias's dad is like, well, he said that you started all of this and like you were the hussy and you did and then you attacked him and then it's disgusting. They call her a whore and they just go off on her.
I fucking hate and it's not just I hate Gardnerians. I hate anybody who does this and truly believes it too.
Yeah, and they do. Even though I feel like the parents know that Tobias is a piece of shit. They say, like Sage says, like the family's evil and like my sisters are going to be fasted to his brothers. Like that was the deal. And like,
well, even the family dynamic from a family point of view, there was a line that her stepmother said, because his family goes, are your children like this? Because Sage has two sisters and through blood, like technically they are half sisters, but as most people who have half siblings, we don't go around saying, oh, this is my half sister. This is my half. No, we say this is my sister. This is my brother. So she's only considered her sisters. And her stepmother says the line, no, not my children. And it was the first time that Elloren really Sage had realized she's never seen me as one of her kids. I was always the other kid. And like, as somebody who's come from, we all have our found family tropes, but as somebody who is comes from a step family and has half siblings, like that shit hurts. It has happened and that shit hurts.
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. So we should mention that as all of this is happening, I did it too. Sage is, has been, I don't know the word, marked or warded is the word, by River, the very wonderful rainbow elf. Mm-hmm. And we love him, and he like goads the Gardnerians, and he's royalty, so nobody can do anything about him, and he's very powerful, and he is just fantastic. He's got like rainbow hoops in his ears, and he has like rainbow embroidering, which is important because, as we know from the Black Witch and Winter, the elves are very stoic. Their emotions are suppressed, and we know this. The amulet, which is discussed later in the book,
and they talk about the amulet again in here, like even more so. When he goes, "I refused the amulet, and now they're after me," which we know more of that story now.
Mm-hmm. It's wonderful, and like River is in Verpax University on like work papers, and like nobody can get to him there, and he like does all the things, right? He does all the things, and he wards Sage so that she isn't like pulled in by other magic because she has no training, she has no exposure, she doesn't know how to use any of her light magery.
I mean, in a way, ACOMAF spoiler, it's when like Feyre came into her Damati powers where Rhys has to train her. He goes, look, we're gonna help you learn your powers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's great. It's great. It's great. And River is friends with a bunch of people that the Gardnerians hate, which is they all work in a smithy that's right across from the hotel that Sage is staying in. And the hotel is like where all of this is happening, where the parents are and, you know, Tobias, where they have this like terrible meeting. And right across from it is the smithy. And in the smithy are a bunch of, gotta say it, Samogdalfar.
There we go.
Yeah.
Samogdalfar.
Yes.
There.
We got
Samogdalfar.
A bunch of elves, and then there's a Celt there, and we'll get into him. And there's a beautiful found family situation happening there, and River is part of that. And Siren, who's the Celt for now, has an immediate like pull and attraction to Sage, and she has it too. And they're like staring at each other across the thing, and it's this whole dynamic.
And this was before the whole Tobias situation. So she already, like, they had already been, you know, doing the nod unintentionally since she stepped on to university.
So then, of course, Sage is not believed by her parents. She's not believed by Tobias's parents. And she's basically labeled like a big, giant, scheming whore. And Sage realizes now that this is it for her. She can't be wandfasted to Tobias. All her dreams about that are shattered. And in like a fit, she runs out of the hotel. She wanders aimlessly for a while, and trigger warning, very much almost throws herself off that bridge. Very much. She is saved. She's pulled back from the brink by the Siren, the Celt. But she's really close, and the inner monologue that she has, like going up to that, she's like, you know, I'm leaning over toward it. I just want to be in the water and engulfed in the blackness, and like none of this will matter, and I'll be clean, and the water will like cleanse me,
and I'll be taken away from here.
Mm-hmm. And it's very powerful. But she's pulled back by Siren, the Celt that she was eye fucking, and. And it's so fast, and like that is the like part 2, like that's the switch where from that point on, Sage has broken with Gardneria, and she is on this self like I don't even know, it's just like her like self-identification journey, like a journey to find herself from this point on.
Yeah, and the people involved, I think she's realizing everybody who's involved at this point. That she has relationships with, like, and not necessarily a romantic relationship, but just any established relationship, they're not Gardnerians. And, you know, and so of course, Siren brings her back to, you know, to where he's been staying. And they wanted to know the whole story. They needed to know the whole story. There was no questioning. There was no victim blaming. And they just kept saying, well, first she needs to go into your room, Siren, because it is the most warded, is the most protected. And right now, everybody's going to be looking for her, because when they realized who her father and her parents are and who she was fasted to, they're like, shit, everybody's going to be out. And at that moment, they send the light into the sky. It's almost like firework trackers. But she didn't care. She goes, don't worry. We will do the best we can, because domestic abuse does not fly here either. And she's, you know, and Sage is so upset because she's not welcomed by anybody. She's not welcomed by her own people. Everybody's already, you know, calling her the Gardnerian slurs. And Lila, she had said, like, well, sometimes you have to make a new home, you know? And I think that the dynamics and that come even when River comes into the picture and he's saying off-colored comments, people are kicking them out, and she goes, just for the night, we all need to cool down. And it was, I felt like their family was true family dynamics of, you're pissing me off. I need a breather. I'm not kicking you out of this family. We all just need to cool it. And you need to kind of, reflect on some of the things that have been said before it can get worse.
And this family, like, who's in this family? We have Siren, who at this point is a Celt. We have Nabi, the little boy. We have Zamir, and we have Lila, and we have Zaya.
Zaya, that's who I was thinking.
And they're so wonderful. And there's a lot of like fantastic stuff that happens, between this. It's a family dynamic, so you can imagine what that's like. But the moment that stuck out to me is the noodles moment. And oh my gosh.
It was such a cultural, but I think this is a perfect example of what we know in the Black Witch, where they think that the lupine are these aggressive people. They sexually assault their females. And we come to learn that no, I'm literally consummating our marriage, and everybody's celebrating our love. But this is another thing with the noodles comment. Oh, they're eating worms, they're eating this. No, it's basically like when you think of, you have udon or rice noodles, you're just being exposed to different types of pasta.
And it is so interesting, too, because Sage has this, like, preconceived notion. And the slur for the we know who we're talking about.
Snake elves?
Yeah, that's a slur.
That's the slur.
That's the slur for the I'm not even sure.
Samogdalfar.
Yeah.
I know the spelling.
I know, me too. I just can't say it. The Samogdalfar. So the slur for them are snake elves because they have beautiful, like, multicolored emerald skin, and it looks like scales, like interlocking scales. But Zaya comes over and she's like, after this noodle comment, like, are we eating worms? And she's like, just like you are not a crow, which is the slur for Gardnerians, I am not a snake. I don't eat insects. I don't live, as a snake. I can't transform into a snake. Touch my skin. And Sage does, and she is shocked. She's like, it's smooth. It's completely smooth. It's just patterned. And it's not, like, raised up. You can't feel it. And she said, like, you're beautiful.
And I think it's something special about this found family that she does have, where when people are saying cruel comments, it's going to sting a little, even if you're used to it at this point. However, they take these opportunities as learning opportunities towards Sage, understanding the type of person that she is, how she was brought up. And there's something to be said in those communities. Of course, you're only going to think certain things if that's the only thing you know. And even Sage begins to acknowledge, everything I've learned about people is wrong this whole time, and you see that part of that self-identification growth and journey throughout this whole novella.
It's so good. And, like, throughout this found family, too, Sage is, like, using her power, and she's, like, realizing what she can do. And her found family saves her in, like, so many ways. But specifically, when they realize that Sage's parents are putting out search spells for her every night, and it's only at night, and they're green, and they say, like, this is fucking shadow magic. Like, I don't know what the Gardnerians are doing, but this is shadow magic, and it's wrong, and it's evil, and they can like tell that it's shadow magic, and they're like, you have to get out of here. And the next shift that happens is that Sage's parents and her fastmate are breaking into the smithy, right? They're like, no, she's got to be there. And they're looking in the smithy, and they, like, ransack it, and they beat up Zamir, and they smack Nabi, and it's this whole situation. Sage also witnesses her father beat her two sisters when they are crying and trying to get into the carriage, and they're like, no, we won't lead Sage. Like, where's Sage? And he beats them. And right
almost unconscious, just so they can
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. But Siren sneaks Sage into a wagon, and Sage is taken to like a forest clearing with a cave. And that is like the next part of this story. And that is where we learn so many things. We learn that Siren is actually...
Oh, he's a prince.
He's a prince. And not only is he a prince, but he's
the last of the royal line.
He's the last of the royal line.
So he's under every single protective order. And she's picking up on this. Sage, she might have been naive in the beginning, but she starts picking up things. She goes, "Why? This doesn't make sense. He's a Samal Dufgar elf." Like everybody else. How come he has this power like everybody else? How come he's the one? You're not telling me something? And he goes, "I need you to tell me what you know, what's going on first, because they're getting attacked and blah, blah, blah." And she finally tells him, she goes, "Okay, but I told you gotta let me know, because I need to know what's going on here." Because at this point they've been hooking up, and very, very innocent, first base stuff, and they love each other. But she's just like, "Who are you? Or what aren't you telling me?"
Right. And then he unbuttons his shirt, and she's like, "What are these chains? Like, what are these?" And we know from the Shadow Wand that those chains are a glamour, because that glamour is put onto Elloren to turn her into one of the gray elves. And so she's using the same glamour. And like, now we know who had it, where it came from, and like how powerful it is. And so Siren takes off that glamour, and he is in his full elf form, and his name is
Raven.
Raven. Yes. And he's wonderful. Like oh my gosh. And he's so
nice.
Powerful. And something that I did really enjoy in this is there's a nice like cave swimming scene, which was very like, for Blood and Ash kind of situation.
Yeah. When he goes, "Hey, like, come on in, the water's fine."
Yeah. And we mentioned like they've been hooking up, like, but not seriously this whole time. And they aren't, I'm going to say Sage. Sage is not convinced that the wand fasting marks and the curse that comes with them if you break them is real, right? She says, like, "They have lied to me about absolutely everything in my life. How do we know that this magic is going to do what they told me it is?"
Well, then they start hooking up, and her hormones start taking... Like, I feel like they started hooking up. They were getting a little bit steamier, because her wand fasting lines had not flared up, essentially, up until this point, when she thought, okay, we're just kind of, let's go with it. Let's go all the way kind of thing. And then hormones took over, and her hands started burning.
Mm-hmm. They started stinging. And then Sage is like, "Fuck this." And this whole time she's been practicing with the white wand and with a grimoire that River has given her. And she is like learning all of these spells, and she's putting the spells into her hand marks, and the light strike spell and all of this, and they have faded, right? She does it so long and so often, and she gets so good at all of these spells, like the camouflage spell and the glamour spell, and she ends up glamoring everybody. But they do it, or she puts so much magic into it that the lines fade. And like, as soon as they fade, she's like, "All right, let's fuck." Yeah, she's DTF. DTF. And then
she took the ganja, not the ganja.
Now I can't think of what it's called.
The root.
She took the pregnancy root.
She took birth control.
I can't think of what it's called now.
I don't remember.
Sanja. You were close. You were close. Close. Okay. Yes, so Sage takes the Sanja route, and she's DTF right away. And they have beautiful, wonderful, sexy time. And
they love each other.
They love each other.
They deeply love each other. Everything. Yeah. She goes, she's just, and it's mutual. It's great.
So, everything is wonderful. And then she wakes up to like horrific pain all down her hands. Like her hands are being flayed off of her, and it's horrific and horrible. And then she goes in and out of consciousness for a while, and she wakes up to Futrin sorceresses over her, trying to like calm her down. And then during this also, she has dreams of wings and being like burned alive, right? And something also very relatable. The sorcerers say, well, you know, you're feeling like that because you're pregnant. And Sage is like, what? I took the birth control. And the Vutrin are like, yo, that root is light sensitive, and you had just blasted yourself full of light magic. Like that, did not work.
It's like when you're still taking, like, not, I mean, this is more extreme, but you know, when you take birth control and then you're taking antibiotics and you're, no, that cancels each other out. That's not how that works.
Oh my God. So then at this point, we're moving on to like the last stage of this. But I want to talk about River, and I want to talk about the children, because River loves children and not in a creepy way. River loves children because they are not like indoctrinated by all of the prejudice that has happened, right? Like children have to learn prejudice, and these children that he's around like haven't yet, and he loves that about them. And because River is like royalty, he doesn't really understand the working conditions of the Smaragdalfar.
There's a privilege that he comes with. I mean, obviously, he's able to kind of flounce around. He doesn't even recognize that. He goes, I didn't want to, so I'm running. I'm on the run, and I came here, and they can't do anything about it. I mean, it totally speaks to his privilege. I do appreciate, and I mean, I think I've said this to you before, my love for my niece has not been tainted by, like, the drama that is my family, and she's just so pure, and I can see where that's where River is like, well, kids haven't been fucked in the head yet.
Mm-hmm. But that all kind of like gets turned on itself because River comes to the cave situation where the refugees are, and you know it's a bunch of Smaragdalfar children, and he's got like candy and stuff, and it's important to know that River and his race of elves are using the Smaragdalfar as like slave labor, and they are oppressing them and murdering them, and they use children for things, and it's really, really horrific. And the conditions in the mines are terrible. So River is like, no, I brought all this candy. I'm going to go see the children and the refugees, and everything's going to be wonderful. And everyone is telling him like, don't do this. Do not do this. There is trauma here that you don't grasp yet. And he goes into the cave, and the children freak out, and they're screaming, and like the adults, put up their magic, and they're ready to attack him. And that is River's like epiphany moment. That is when he runs out, he cuts off all his hair, he throws all his jewelry, and he's like, Sage, glamour me into something else, because for the rest of my life, I'm dedicating to moving these refugees across the desert. I will be their guide. This is my like purpose. And it's really, really lovely. And I want to see more of River. Like, we don't get any more of River.
Yet. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So we don't know like what happens to River, but he is just like a really wonderful example of somebody having their epiphany moment and like dedicating the rest of their life to change, which is just fantastic. Just fantastic. And his gifting of the grimoire to Sage is the reason that Sage has become so powerful. And she has taught herself all of these really wonderful spells, and she glamours everybody so that they are the storm gray elves, so that they don't look Smaragdelfar, and they're able to travel easier. And that in and of itself is very difficult for all of them because they want to be like who they are. They don't want to be anybody different. But for safety reasons, that you know, it is what it is. And also,
it's the same thing that happened. Why can't I think of her name at the moment? When she had to, not Aislinn. Who am I thinking of? Who was the blue
Tierney.
elf? Tierney, where she had to be completely disguised and adopted as such, and she had all these layers of magic and things that were intertwined. And we find out about the intertwining of the magics when you have the one child who is part one species
Nabi.
and part where she goes, you know, he has two sources of magic, and it reminded me of Lucas learning another. Like, you're technically not supposed to you could layer magic within your own society, but then when you start layering magic from other societies and species, that's when it starts getting tricky, and that's where we are in current day. You know, Erthia. That's one of the things Lucas is learning.
It's so good. It all ties together so well. We should also mention at this point, Sage is purple. She has like stained herself purple with her magic, and she can't get it off, and she's just purple forever, and that's fine because she loves purple, and I think it's really beautiful. And give me the fucking fan art.
I want the fan art. If you see Lori Forrest's Instagram page, like she does a lot of mood photos, and there's going to be a heavy involvement with the whole purple of it, because I feel like that's the direction that we're going with the demon tide cover, and like the blue moons and the lavender fields. And I mean, herself, she lives in Vermont, where she goes, she'll go to lavender or lilac fields just so. I feel that's going to be, Sage is going to have, this is just my speculation, we're going to see more of Sage in this next book. And I'm here for it. So maybe we'll get some of these characters back too, because by the end of this book, she's with the Vutrin. So we know that the children cannot, it's only women, with the exception of Sage's son, Sage and Ravine, Siren's son.
So his name is Fenir.
Oh, Fenir. So yeah, I can't imagine not seeing where this will go.
It's so good. Okay, so we're in the final part of this book, and this last section answers some questions that we have raised in our other 3 episodes. So, Jess, I remember you asking me, like, how can Sage have her baby in the Amaz lands where they don't allow men? And we have a very specific answer in this book. It says...
Yeah, they said that they were like basically cashing in on like an IOU.
Yeah,
right?
a war debt. Yeah, they had... The Amaz owed the Vutrin a war debt, and it's the only time that the Amaz have allowed a man in their territory to like stay there. And
I was saying Vutrin before. I meant Amaz.
Yeah, and because he's like the prophecy baby, and they view him as like a weapon. And because the Amaz view baby Fenir, because he's an Icarol, as a weapon, potentially the weapon of prophecy, Sage feels that she has to escape and get away from that because he is not a weapon. At the same time, the white wand that Sage has been carrying for all these years since she was 13 has started to speak to her and tell her that the next bearer is Elloren. Elloren. And she tells the Amaz and the Vutrin this, and they're like, fuck no. This is a sacred wand. You can't give it to the descendant of the Black Witch.
Well, they initially say, you cannot, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to give it back to Gardneria. And at which point Sage has to very specifically say, no, they're not saying give it to Gardnerians. They're saying to give this to Elloren. And I think that she had to be very specific about that for the transaction to transpire.
Mm-hmm. Also, something that I found really fantastic is the fact that it is made clear in this book that not everyone can see the Watchers, the white birds.
I didn't pick up on that till I saw your notes.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I didn't. Because, I mean, Elloren saw them and Sage saw them. So I feel like the people that we've seen seeing them, we're in their perspective. So I didn't think anybody else didn't.
But then Sage sees one of the birds and she sees them as like kind of translucent, like sitting on one of the, I think the Vutrin, one on her shoulder. She's like, you know, don't you see that? Don't you see the bird? She's like, no, I don't see the bird this time. And it's like, oh, and that makes perfect sense because you would think that if everyone could see the white birds,
then everybody would know about this shit that Marcus Vogel's pulling.
Right. Everyone would know and everyone would see them as the holy birds. Everyone would make the connections. Like all of this would happen. But we know that's not the case. And it's like, oh, that it makes such perfect sense now. And it's like, okay, this is a question that I didn't even know that I had that is answered now. Like, of course. And it kind of puts in perspective the scene from the Iron Flower where Winter can see the birds. This is after the Lupine Massacre, and Elloren can see the birds, but like nobody else is reacting to all of these birds covering their eyes with shame about the Lupine Massacre. Because again, if everyone could see them, then they wouldn't be acting like this. It's really beautiful. And it's just this gorgeous detail that puts in perspective that maybe there is like some sort of higher power guiding people, right? Just because of this, I just thought it was really fantastic. And it is one of my favorite things about Lightmage is these little questions being answered.
And, you know, you say higher power, and I think that for me personally, I think there's a big difference between having a higher power and the church / religion. And I mean, even Vale says to Fane in Wandfasted, for the life of me, Fane, I cannot understand your attachment to this inflexible religion of ours. And frankly, it makes me question your intelligence. They're not questioning the higher power. They're questioning the church and they're questioning the religion. And those are two, contrary to popular belief, very different things.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Okay, so the very last part of this is really fantastic because the last part of this book is like the beginning part of the Black Witch.
Mm-hmm. Which I think was very important to, again, we had said that Wandfasted, you're in it initially, especially if that's the one you choose to start off with. You're in the resistance for Gardenaria. All hail Gardenarians. You're in it with them. But this one brings you back to reality. This is the Gardenaria now, and I think it's just how it was intertwined, where this novella Lightmage is the chapter 1 from Sage's point of view of the Black Witch, and even in that even in their interaction. Elloren's Sage, like, come on. It reminded me of where she goes, it's okay. Just kind of placate to her. And in that moment, I think Sage says something. She goes, she's going to need to unlearn everything that she's been taught. Because Sage had to unlearn everything she had. She already saw, she goes, here we go again. This is on her. Yeah,
it's like a cycle starting over again. And like Sage, something that I really love too is throughout this whole book, after Sage runs away, she's like, I need to save my sisters. But everyone else is like, you will, but you need to save yourself first. You have to learn how to use your magic. You have to learn the situation. You have to learn the politics, learn how to play the game, and then save your sisters. And she does. She pulls her sisters out.
And that's one of the things my godmother has always said to me based on like different circumstances that I've been in. She goes, you can't help others until you help yourself. You have to help yourself. And, you know, we know this even from if you go on an airplane, they tell you want to help the person next to you. You got to help yourself because you're not going to help anybody if you don't have oxygen coming to you. So put on your mask first, and then you'll be able to help everybody around you. And I think, you know, it's part of the bigger picture that we always talk about, you know, and even the line like resistance is a long game. Yeah. So you gotta get everything together. So then you're not kind of floundering around with what's supposed to happen, because when she does rescue her sisters, it feels very in and out. You have you have not been fasted. We're getting you out of here. You got to be quiet, and we'll figure it out from here. But right now, this is the assignment, and then we'll figure everything else out.
A little detail that I like in this situation is that Sage has Fenrir, her baby, like strapped to her, right? And she's like, I need to keep him calm. So what does she do? She puts the elven amulet on him because that will suppress him and calm him down.
I didn't pick up on that. That is such a really good detail.
It's a little detail which makes the revelations that happen in the Shadow Wand like that much more. You're like, oh.
And then in the Shadow Wand, he's like, I will not be quiet. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really beautiful, and I feel like as you know, I have said, as you have said, if the author writes it, you should read it because it's all there for a reason. And all of these questions and all these little details and everything that we learn in these two books are so applicable to the story that we've had so far that it's just so important. And Sage's journey is so fantastic. We learn so much about, you know, the world, and I think it's nice to have these different points of view. So we're not just like stuck with Elloren the whole time. And that changes in the Shadow Wand, but it's just so great. And then this book ends with like Sage and her sisters like going off to safety. And of course we find Sage like later on, but it's so good. Everyone needs to read this stuff.
Not enough people. Ooh, this is a long episode. Everybody needs to read it. It's a great conversation. It's stimulating. You're in it. You should be in it. And we've mentioned on the first episode, we understand that there was controversy, and you're more than welcome to read up onto it. But if you actually read it, you can understand that the controversy was there. It isn't. It isn't. It just kind of seems pretty fabricated. Wonderful book, wonderful series. Did not think that I would like something so much outside of the SJM JLA world, or more specifically from Blood and Ash world. It's thought provoking. And, you know, and once again, like that, I mean, yeah, there's a little bit, I wouldn't even say spice. There's romance, but plot is very heavy, you know, like this is plot driven, you know, and the romance helps move it along for sure. I mean, one of my favorite things in this book in the Lightmage was, you know, I was going to say Elloren again. Sage and Siren are about to, you know, they're being together and her hands are hurting. And she goes, I wish I was wandfasted to you instead. She's hurting. She's physically hurting. She's emotionally hurting. She's thinking she physically can't be with this person that she loves. And he goes, no, you should not be fasted to anybody. You should be your own self. Laura, you know that's my shit. That's when I would have fucked him too. Like,
for real. It's just like, wow, this is what we need. Like this, you know, strong men, strong women who don't need each other, but who come together and make each other better and like work together as, oh my God.
It's a partnership. There is no ownership, and they're together because they want to be. And when they see each other as equals, it makes such a difference in that dynamic.
It's wonderful. And we should also mention that Ravon had to leave Sage. Like, Ravon is on his own journey, and that's because the Amaz, like, would not let him stay with Sage. Like, he wanted to, but he couldn't. So I believe that we will see, like, what he's been doing. That will probably happen in the Demon Tide or, anything else. But, like, he's obviously on his own quest, and everything will have to, like, come full circle. And I'm really excited for that.
Well, even the way this ends, not even ends, but, like, in the tail end of this book, Sage is asking where he is, and they tell her, like, you're in the Amaz land. This is the exception to the rule with your son. However, like, bigger things are happening. There are bigger players involved. Like, shit's going down. Just, again, it's another bigger picture thing. And she doesn't completely get emotionally, oh my God, I got to find this person. She knows what he's capable of. And she's focusing about her kid too. She's focusing about her kid, her sisters. She's taking that breather to say, okay, like, this is bigger picture. She knew what she just, take care of yourself before you take care of others. And that's what, it's a continuing theme, because now she can take care of others. Now the next step to go about it the right way and make sure everything, because, we're 3.5, whatever, we're 3 full books and 2 novellas. We still are not a battle. Shit's still going down. Everybody's undercover. Everybody's finding their alliances, and it's going to come to a head at some point, and I'm so excited. Oh, my God.
I have 2 points, and then I am done. So, point one is it's important to recognize that Sage has fire lines now because of her Icaral baby. Her Icaral baby has given her protection to fire, just like Yvonne did to Elloren. Sage is able to, like, put her whole hand in fire, and it, like, feels good and, like, soothes all of her broken fast lines and things, which have not healed and which are, like, spelled with ointments and stuff to be better, but they are still there. That's number 1. Number 2 is we learn in this book how everybody else, all the other races and religions, learned about Sage's baby. And that is through the trees. The trees read the fire that was in her and in the Icaral baby. And, like, because the trees were aware of it, all of the races and religions use the trees in their, like, scrying and casting. And the trees told everybody about the Icaral that Sage has. So that is kind of how word got out about everything. And that's another, like, little question that is answered in this book. And those are my 2 points.
I have no other points. I'm so excited. I love the series. I'm ready for the Demon Tide, which had shifted release dates from September to December as of right now. I don't care when we get it, as long as we can we beg for an arc of this, because I'm obsessed, and I'll still buy it. Like, I already have it on pre-order. I just want to know sooner than the release date. I think we both do, and just gush about it some more.
Yeah, and again, everybody should read this book. Everybody should read this series. Everybody should recognize that this is YA. It's very YA, but it is so much.
I understand that it's YA, but it just feels very adult. Mm-hmm. Maybe it goes with the theme of this podcast with, lived experiences, but I feel like everybody has lived these experiences, have some sort of exposure to it at this point.
Yep. Yeah. It's so good. Everybody, please read it. Yeah.
So feel free to follow us on Instagram. We're both on TikTok, ACOFAE Laura, ACOFAE Jessica. Just thank you for listening. And if you want to say some kind words for reviews, that would be greatly appreciated. We love interacting. And also, if you've even made it through this entire episode, please feel free to get in our DMs and give us some suggestions for giveaways. We've been doing signed books, Amazon wish lists, gift cards. So we really just kind of want to keep fostering this community that we all love and want to be a part of.
So thank you so much for everything. It's just been a blast.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.